everyone! Today I'll be taking a look at all the items I picked up during Visual Arts Koubaibu 2022. This year was really strange in that they promised us an online store like they have done for the past couple of years, and then they didn't give us one. I'm not sure why or what happened, but they promised online stores multiple times and then didn't do it, which was very weird because the past couple of years have been great where they have done online sales and things like Fuyu Fest and stuff as well. They've really worked hard on their online events, so I don't know what happened to this year's Koubaibu, especially considering they said multiple times in writing that we are going to be doing an online store. To then not do it, I think is really weird. This year's Koubaibu was also quite different in that they went around the country and they even went to where I used to live in Tohoku, and I realized quite early on that maybe they are lying and that they won't give us the online store, and I was right. So I asked my friend to go for me as it was coming to the town that I used to live in, and she went for me and I managed to get everything except for a couple of items which I then had to get on the aftermarket, but luckily I did manage to get everything I was aiming for this year, despite the very weird and disorganized management and the straight up lying, which I didn't really like, but I did manage to get everything together. I will start off with the larger items that won't really fit on the table. The first one is of course this year's Kamome tapestry. She hasn't been included on the tapestries since 2019, which was the last time I actually went to Koubaibu in person, so it's very nice to see her this year. I am very miffed that out of the 3 illustrations that were made as ideas for this year's tapestry design, I was very upset that they didn't go for the Kaizoku Kamome. This one is very nice, but I don't understand what went wrong here. I don't understand how they didn't say yes to the Kaizoku, the pirate design. I don't know what went wrong there. That was the most perfect illustration I've ever seen, but we got this instead. The other girls I think had good choices. It was just Kamome that got the really weird decision to not have the pirate design. This one is definitely the least interesting of the 3. Obviously the budget is definitely a lot higher this year. There were more illustrations than there ever has been, more goods, and just an insane amount of variations of panels and acrylic things. I definitely think that's due to Heaven Burns Red and the amount of money that's made. It's a really good thing because then now we've got all of these options when it comes to goods for the Koubaibu. The quality on this tapestry is definitely better than previous years. There's a massive difference between this and the one from 3 years ago. I'm very happy to see that Kia are making enough money to improve their products each time. I look forward to seeing next year's one, if this is how they're going to keep doing these and have more girls rather than just the typical 3. And before I move on to all of the Little Busters 15th anniversary things, this is the Kamiyama Shiki acrylic stand from the Reflection Blue fan book, and I do have this book as well, and when this illustration came out of the remaining 4 girls, I was really happy to see Shiki's design. The dress is really cute on this one. I do have the Kamome already from the previous release of this series. They did re-release her with a different base, so this one actually has a hexagon base rather than the square one. I already have the one that had the square base, so I didn't bother picking up the new one, but it is nice that they did get a re-release since I know that some of them had become quite hard to obtain. Next up, and pretty much everything from here on out, is all Little Busters related, as this year was the 15th anniversary of Little Busters, which I was very much looking forward to since the 10th, because the 10th anniversary was quite a letdown. For some reason it became the Kudowafta celebration and not the Little Busters celebration, which was really strange. So I held on until the 15th and hoped that they would make up for that, and they very much did. I'd say that they did more so for Fuyu Fest and not for Koubaibu though, as much as I was really happy with this illustration. This is the Fukusei Genga of the Little Busters 15th anniversary Komari and Rin illustration. Hinoi Itaru has returned to draw Komari, and of course we have Rin from Naga, and it's so good. I knew that they would announce roughly at 7 o'clock Japan time, I think it was, or 6 or whatever it was. I kind of based it off the time that they had announced Koubaibu in the first place, and also previous years, so I sat there and waited that day, waiting for them to announce at roughly that time. There was no given time, but I just assumed that it would be the same time that they had announced the previous week's announcements. I think it was roughly 10 minutes late or something like that, and I thought, oh, maybe I'm wrong, but it did happen at the time that I somewhat expected. And they announced this illustration and I nearly had a heart attack. Not so much as the heart attack that I was given during Food Fest, but that's a different story. So at first, a lot of people, including myself, thought that this was them at 31, since of course we've been waiting to see a 31-year-old cast because of the 32-year-old Kyosuke that came out last year. Apparently they're not, and it just says "Skoshi seijou shita," which is they're a little bit older. So I'm guessing early 20s, daigakuse age, I guess. Seeing them on the roof and seeing that time has passed and the metal and the balcony is rusting away and the cats have had kittens and everyone's older, the town has changed in a way, and the clothes as well, seeing official shifuku for these characters for the first time in years is really nice, let alone clothes that they're wearing as they're now adults. That was really exciting. Seeing that Rin has moved her bell to the shushu that's tying her hair back. The Genga was meant to have online sales fairly close to the Koubaibu, so it was that you could order this in store and then you could go pick it up. They did say that in the coming days we'll announce the online version of this system. They didn't, and I thought, okay, this is really fishy, and that's when it started to click that they're not going to do an online sale despite them saying they are. I have a feeling they're not, so I went and got my friend to get everything. They ended up adding the Fukusei Genga to Fuyu Fest rather than having it as a Koubaibu order, which was really weird. I ended up not waiting for that. I saw this pop up on Surugaya for pretty much the same price that it was being sold for, so I just bought it because even if I did get it at Fuyu Fest later on, they were being really disorganized with everything, and I just can't trust what they say anymore when it comes to this stuff. I don't know what's going on with the goods department at the moment with Key, but I really hope they fix it because it's not very fair on the consumer. But I am very glad that I got this. Having it in person made me realize just what a nice piece this is, and I tried hanging it on the wall and it looks fantastic. I'm definitely going to have this hung up rather than the tapestry. The tapestry is really good, but I definitely want to display this rather than the tapestry. And in the end, the online sales were only for this Fukusei Genga. They merged this into Fuyu Fest and didn't do online sales for anything else, despite them promising multiple times in writing that they would. It's very frustrating. I'm very relieved that I clocked onto that quite quickly and got someone to go for me, but I know many people that just didn't bother to go because it's not always viable to travel that far just to go for an event. But the Fukusei Genga itself, this is available on Fuyu Fest, so if you like it you can still purchase one, I think, if it's not sold out. And I really recommend this. This is a very nice way to have this illustration. I did get the tapestry and also the acrylic panel as well, but I think this in particular is the nicest way to display this new illustration of Komari and Rin. It's very nice as well that it has the little gold plate at the bottom that says Little Buster's 15th anniversary. And moving on, we have the tapestry that I just mentioned. There are two versions of this illustration, so there's one that's portrait and then the other one, like the Fukusei Genga, which is landscape. The portrait version is obviously a lot closer to the original first press edition of the game, since that was portrait, and it looks nice displayed together. However, I do prefer the landscape one just because you can actually see the cats on the side. On the portrait one, they get cut off. But either way, I really like that there's both versions because it's nice to be able to see the cats and see the long version of this illustration. But also it's nice to have it next to the old version. Next I have the holographic clear file set. So this is of the new illustration and then the illustration that this is a remake of. It's really cool that they put these two together and you can then frame these, for example, and display them together so that one's the original and then one is the 15th anniversary version of the same illustration. The cool thing about these as well is that they are holographic. The plastic itself is very glittery, and I haven't seen a clear file with this kind of glitter before, so it's really cool that they did that. It's oddly nostalgic for some reason. I feel like this kind of glittery plastic thing was really common when I was a kid. I feel like stickers and things used to have this sort of holographic look to them. So it's interesting that they went with this design. I personally really like it. It's quite different rather than just your typical clear file. It's quite glittery, and if it catches the light right, it looks really nice. This is the B6 acrylic panel of the same illustration, and this was the one item that proved to be ridiculously hard to get, not just on the aftermarket but in person. It sold out on the first day of every event. I asked my friend to go for me, and this item was already sold out within the first few hours. I don't know whether it was that they didn't make enough stock or it was just that popular, but I think maybe a bit of both contributed to that. This went up once on Surugaya and I managed to get that straight away. This hasn't shown up since anywhere, and this was hard to get even in person, let alone online. So the fact that they didn't do the online sales that they promised us is really strange. I am very glad that I was able to get this. The size is really nice. This is a really good size. I hope that they continue to put out these, since they have made another one of the new Little Busters illustration of the same size, so I think it'll look nice to display those together. And here we have what I would suggest are the most interesting items of the entire Koubaibu. They made these Kaginado art style Little Busters wafu items. It was an interesting series of products where they have it set out so it's like a mini tapestry and a tenugui and also donburi as well, which is the bowl in the middle. So it's all just Japanese wafu themed. And even the Little Bastard is written traditionally instead. This was really cute. I really like the fact that they went for something so different. The bowl in particular, I really like. This again was meant to go online, didn't happen. I'm very glad that I got it in person. This bowl is fantastic. I don't want to use it. I was saying to myself I would buy a second one if they had online sales and then have one to display and one to use. But of course, the promised online sales didn't happen, so this is my one to save and not use. The inside of the bowl is of doruji and he's very full. So I like that if you use this and you finish using it, of course, you can see doruji at the bottom also being very full. The wave pattern that is quite prominent on here as well. It's just a really well-designed piece. Just seeing everyone is really nice, because this was the one thing I was disappointed about with the Little Busters 15th anniversary illustration. I understand that drawing 10 characters is probably a pain, but we have not had a Shugo illustration of everyone together since 2012. Since 2012, 10 years ago. 10 years have passed and we've not had a single new official illustration of these 10 characters. I don't want to complain too much, but the fact that this exists and we got all 10 of them on this, I think was a good decision. I don't know whether it was Yuchi or one of the graphickers that designed this. I'm guessing so, but they did a fantastic job. This is the mini tapestry of the same illustration. This is the full illustration in portrait, so it goes straight down rather than the tenugui, which goes across. Kyosuke with his hands on Rin and Riki's heads. There's so many small funny little details that I really like on this, but in particular it's Kengo and Masato fighting over a toy of Riki that really got me. It's nice to see everyone included together, and the Kaginado art style is really cute, so it's a nice piece to have. And I think this mini tapestry thing, this is the first time that Key has ever put out something like this. I expected it to be something that you can hang on the wall. It's too small for that, so it has its own stand and it hangs on this pole that comes with the tapestry, and it's quite nice. You can just put this on the shelf or something, and it's not something that's a wall tapestry, it's just more of a display item. And lastly we have the tenugui. This is landscape rather than portrait, so the illustration goes across. You can see Kyosuke's van, people carrier, and you can see the illustration a lot more clearly since this is the largest version of it. It's quite hard to tell what Mio was holding on the tapestry, but you can tell on this one very clearly that she has her camera, and you can also very clearly see that Masato and Kengo are fighting over this Riki toy. It'd be nice if they made the Riki toy into an actual piece of merchandise. Last but not least, we have the postcards and bromides that were either handed out, or this one was actually from the gachapon, and I wanted this one since it is of course the older illustration but with the 15th anniversary logo on it. It's a really weird reason to want these, but I'm really funny about Little Busters postcards and things. I really like to have them, so I just went with one. I was going to go for the whole set of all of the characters, but they are just reusing the Blu-ray illustrations, and the line pattern I wasn't too keen on, but this one in particular I actually did want, so I picked this up secondhand rather than trying my luck at the gachapon. And another postcard, this is the one that comes free when you spend a certain amount on Summer Pocket's Reflection Blue Goods, and this is a really lovely illustration as well by Fumiyoung. And probably the most important item of the entire Koubaibu this year was this postcard. I hope that they do the same thing that they did with the Natsume Kyodai illustration, where they first had it as an illustration and then they actually made goods of it. It would be very nice to have this in another form since it's just a small postcard. I do understand that they are facing the other way, and it's very unlikely that they'll make an acrylic stand or something with their backs facing you. This was in a very similar fashion to the Natsume Kyodai, where they are actually advertising the products. This has both the actual donburi there as well as the shirts that were released this year. They are reusing the same design that they made for the t-shirts, but just to see a new illustration of Riki and Masato was amazing. I really wish that Kengo got the same treatment. Obviously later on the 5 got a new illustration for Fuyu Fest, but it would have been very nice to have Kengo. Naga kind of hinted that, oh, I would have drawn Kengo if it had been a bowl and not a donburi, because he wanted to make the pun chawanda rather than Kengo's chabanda. You can still call this a bowl. I really wish he would have done it anyway. But regardless, it's really cool to see Masato and Riki. Haven't seen them in a long time, and seeing Masato wearing geta, I really like that. Overall, that is everything I picked up from this year's Visual Arts Koubaibu. I know that this year was really weird and a lot of people couldn't buy anything from the Koubaibu, which I think is quite unfair. Hopefully that doesn't happen again and next year is better, but I honestly have no idea what happened there. It's really weird. I do think they've made up for it in a way with Fuyu Fest, but still, you shouldn't have put it in writing if you're not going to do it. Or you could at least acknowledge that, sorry, we didn't do what we said we were going to do. I'm really grateful that I was able to just ask my friend to go. If the Koubaibu hadn't have gone to Sendai, I probably wouldn't have been able to do that, so I'm lucky in the sense that it actually went somewhere that I used to live. But Fuyu Fest is definitely really exciting. All the stuff should be arriving soon, so I hope to make a video on that when it arrives. But I hope you enjoyed the video nonetheless. Sorry it's really late because, again, I had to get some of these items much later in the aftermarket and it was all a bit of a mess trying to get all of these things together, but I managed to in the end. I'm quite happy about that. But thank you very much for watching until the end of the video. I hope you enjoyed to some extent. I feel like it was mostly just complaining about how disorganized it was this year, but I hope you enjoyed and I hope to see you all in the next video. Bye.